Well, here's a garden update from the California gardener. You know how it is, you leave for a few days. I was up in Monterey, now back down in Southern California. I come back, I have a little jungle starting back here. Here's my yard-long cucumbers growing up this trellis. They're just climbing right on up, way up, almost to the top of the fence already. It's the end of May, May 31st. And then walking back, we have all of our tomatoes growing up their string trellis here. And look at these tomatoes along the back fence. They're shading our peppers nicely there. The peppers, it's okay if they're in a little bit of shade. It prevents the leaves from getting burned down here in Southern California. And then we have these Roma peppers growing like crazy along the back fence. You see my pathway is being grown in by the tomatoes already. And if we head down here, I'll show you these tomatoes. So check this out. These are the tomatoes we planted from Costco. They were a little bit bigger at the time that they went into the ground. Look at the tomatoes all the way down. They're just loaded. And if you check out near the bottom, look at those beautiful red tomatoes growing down there. This is why I love home gardening. These beautiful, great tasting red tomatoes. They're worth every little bit of effort that you put into them, and they're really not that hard to grow. Going further down here, see, we have another plant loaded and even has some red ones down there close to the ground. Those ones you should pick, otherwise bugs will get them. Have to work our way through this forest, make it all the way back to our cherry tomatoes. Check out this thing is loaded here. Look at all those cherry tomatoes all the way down. There's even some red ones here at the bottom, I think. Yeah, let's check them out. Look at that, nice red cherry tomatoes. Mmm, yummy. Hiding back here in the corner is our pumpkin. Look how big it is. That's probably as big as this Cinderella will get. They hit a certain size and then they just harden off and change color. Check out these peas. Since last time they've really shot up. They're now taller than the trellis is. So they're growing, blossoming. And if we give you a close-up, let's take a look at the peas making pods. There we have some beautiful pods forming on their way up with some nice blossoms. You can eat them when they're thin like this, or wait till they have peas. They're great either way, or you can toss them in a stir fry. Our lettuce patch is still growing great. You can see the areas that I've cut down before. Right over here, it's growing right back. I've cut this row down, look at that, it's growing right back as well. Middle row, look at that one. And this lettuce, man, it's gone crazy. One of the plants in this mix just grows really big and outgrows everything else in the mix. You see it's supposed to have some red leaves and everything else, but this other big stuff just takes over. So I'm gonna pull all that stuff out and let the smaller, more tender leaves grow in below. Check out how my pumpkin patch has just exploded in size. There we have the pumpkins spreading out on the lawn. I'm gonna redirect them down the path so they're not growing on the lawn so I can still mow the grass. We have some corn popping up through the pumpkins. Gotta make sure the pumpkin vines don't climb up the corn like you see back there. I'll redirect the pumpkin vines so that my corn can still grow, but hopefully I get some back there. Strawberries are still blooming. Here our pole beans are taking off up their poles, curling their way up. They're probably gonna climb right up into my guava tree. But I'll prevent them from doing that because I don't really want them growing in the guava tree. I see some beautiful blossoms in my guava tree. I'm really excited because looks like I have a ton of blossoms gonna come out. We didn't get much fruit off this guava tree last year, so this is gonna be excellent. If you live in Southern California, I highly recommend planting these guava trees because all these little buds are gonna turn into blossoms and make great, excellent tasting guavas. This Mexican white guava, this is the one I So here's more of my beans. We have the pole beans to that side, and then green and yellow and burgundy beans. You see they're starting to blossom right there. I have some volunteer, looks like a squash coming up there in the middle. Here's a volunteer tomato plant in the front. You can just leave them in because they don't seem to be bothering the beans. The beans are really taking over, taking command of this area. Parsley is getting old, so we're gonna have to replace that with something else. And then look at all the berries back there. Oh, yummy, so many berries getting ready. Here's that area I planted in the landscaping fabric. Look, very nice, no weeds around the plants. I haven't had to do anything with this area. All I do is turn on the sprinkler that comes on every morning and evening for a little bit, and my peppers and eggplants are growing like crazy here. I don't see any eggplants growing yet, but they're starting to blossom, and those peppers are growing really well. Tons of nectarines on the tree, but as you can see, they're starting to fall like crazy, so we're picking a lot. Gonna start drying some. We'll show you how we do that in one episode. Our pomegranate tree is loaded this year. There's pomegranates everywhere. Pomegranates are so good and expensive in the store, so it's great if you can grow your own here. Here we have some beets growing. They're in a little bit of a shady area here under this nectarine tree, but they're still growing good. Kind of nice to keep the heat off them here in Southern California, otherwise they get beat down a bit. Bunch of lettuce, I just picked that row off. And then as we move over, a row of Burgundy beans. And then here's my cucumber plants. Climbing right up those trellises like I told you they would. I haven't even been directing these ones up, they just find their own way. Here's another one, they're gonna start growing up this metal trellis pretty soon. And then here's our red Swiss Chard. It's growing great. I laid down some straw, as you can see, because this is a dry spot in my garden. So I usually have to water it a little bit much, but since I was gone for the last 4 days, I want to put this in so that it would stay moist. Here's the kale. I still haven't thinned it out, but it's really going good. It's starting to get taller and bushier. I can start picking it and using it on our salads and recipes that we're making. So that's exciting. And this is Chinese cabbage. Doesn't seem to do too well here in the summer in Southern California. It just goes straight to seed. So I'm gonna pull that all out and plant something else probably here in the near future. And here's our green onions. They're growing well. It's another dry spot in the garden. Onions handle a bit of drying, so that's okay. And a huge rhubarb plant and more berries. Look at all those berries. Should consider growing some boysenberries or blackberries here in Southern California. They do really well. My grapes, these are the red flame seedless I showed you in previous videos. They're doing amazing. So what I did was, since they've all set their fruit already, and they were growing vines like crazy. The vines were covering all of the area here. I just went ahead and chopped off the ends of all the vines, leaving a few feet of leaves, and then they can keep growing. But then you have more air circulation for the leaves, and you don't get disease as much, so make sure you thin out your branches a little bit. The grapes will actually do better. Here's our peach tree that I did that thinning video on. You see I've thinned out the peaches quite a bit. There's some areas that I guess I missed. Even when they're smaller, it looks like you thinned them out enough, but they're a little close. So, you know, keep them every 3 to 4 inches apart and they'll grow really well. But it looks like I have a lot of peaches on this tree for this year, so that'll be enjoyable. Maybe we can make some dried peaches when they're ready. Here's a spot I have. It's right behind a wall. It doesn't get a whole lot of sunshine, but as you can see with the heat here in Southern California, these tomato plants just great. And this year I wanted to plant some peppers over here to see how they do. And they're kind of getting overtaken by the tomatoes, but they are here and they're doing actually really well. I planted them at the same time as I planted some other peppers, and they're about the same size, and you'll see these ones are about, getting close to 2 feet tall. And I'll show you the ones over some other place where I planted them. They're not doing quite as well. So here's another group of peppers that I planted as the other group. Usually, like last year, these ones did really well, and I still expect that they'll turn out to be pretty good, but it'll just take them a little while to get going. But you see they're much more straggly and not as tall as the other ones planted. And this area, I mean, it has about the same amount of shade. The only thing I can think about is that it's different is maybe it's a little more wet here, and it would be better if they had a little bit more drainage. So I might have to turn the sprinkler off in this area for a couple days, let it dry out a bit, and the plants might do a little better. Check it out. This is one of the tomatoes I just snapped off when I was pruning them and stuck it in the ground over here. It's standing up really nicely, and it's already setting blossoms there. And here's the other one I planted. Look at that, it's already setting blossoms too. And then look at this. This is the one that looked all dead as a doornail, and it's sat up, has nice leaves on it. It'll probably start blossoming as well soon. So it's really easy to grow tomatoes from those stickers you prune off your plants. Now if you look at this is my potato patch. The rest of the patch is doing well. Potato at the corner is pretty much dead. I think it's because this area gets too much water. It's where the two sprinklers overlap. So if you see your plants, you know, turning yellow like this, they are drowning. They drown just like you would drown if there's too much water. So I would recommend, you know, watching if you're having this problem with your plants. You'll need to do a raised bed or not water as much or get better drainage. So if this happens to your plants, don't worry, you just gotta make some changes. Look at that, it's like rotted right off there at the bottom. Or who knows, maybe a bug got in here. But I really think this area just got too much water. Check out my yellow crookneck squash growing in the fabric. They're growing great. Maybe a little bit too close together. Getting kind of tall. But they'll fall over and start doing well. They're blossoming like crazy now. And if you look down the line, we even have some starting to grow. I see some down there. If you can see them blossoming and growing. There's some more. And then check out, we have here another big Cinderella pumpkin growing, and another type of squash on top of the Cinderella pumpkin. And then check out, growing, hanging from my tomato cages is some sort of hybrid pumpkin from last year that planted itself. So I'll just continue to let it grow and see what it turns into. I really like this idea about growing in landscaping fabric. As you see, I did it this year. You don't have to worry about weeds or anything. You just stick the plants in there, then you're done for the season. They grow like great, keeps the moisture in, keeps the weeds down. Much easier to garden like that. Give it a try in your next garden. So I hope you enjoyed this update, and stay tuned. I'll give you another update in a week or two and see how things are growing. What do you do with your nectarines when you have way too many, didn't thin them out, and you want to preserve some? Well, today we're gonna dry some nectarines, so see how we do that. So what we're looking for is the ripe nectarines, the ones that are soft and squishy just like that, right, Kelly? Are those yummy?